Welcome back. International and international news this hour. Canada is hosting an international meeting in London today to coordinate a response to the downing of Flight 752. The aim is for the affected countries to find out exactly what happened and help the families of the victims. Let's bring in Redmond Shannon, who joins us from the Canadian High Commission in London. So obviously, Redmond, heightened emotion in so many countries around the world. Tell us more what we can expect at this meeting today.
Yes, Anthony. So here at Canada House in London, Francois-Philippe, Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister, is meeting with his counterparts from the countries affected by this disaster, excluding Iran, of course. So that includes foreign ministers from Afghanistan, Sweden, the UK and Ukraine, but also the foreign minister from the Netherlands, Stef Blok, is here too. And he is here to lend his expertise and experience from the Netherlands investigation into the downing of flight MH17 over Ukraine in 2014. That a very similar incident where that flight was shot down by Russian-backed rebels, and the Netherlands was in charge of that joint investigation. So they will be hoping to learn from his experience today. Also, they'll be talking about basically who gets held to account and how they get held to account and exactly why this flight was shot down. They'll also be talking about compensation for the victims. Ukraine and even Canada has indicated that there will be some interim compensation for Canadian victims, but ultimately you can be sure that these countries want Iran to be held accountable and to pay compensation to the victims. And also there is the very tricky issue, Anthony, of repatriation. A number of these people who are Canadian citizens were dual citizens of Iran, but Iran doesn't recognize dual citizenship, and that there are fears that there could be issues in repatriating these bodies back to their families in Canada. Transport Minister Marc Garneau was asked about that in Ottawa yesterday. He couldn't make any promises, but take a listen to what he did have to say.
From our point of view, a Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian, as you've heard us say perhaps 1,000 times, and we believe very strongly in that. So in our view, the 57 Canadians that lost their life tragically are Canadian citizens, and they are entitled to all the rights that Canadian citizens have, and we will do our utmost to make sure that those rights are accorded to them.
All right, Redmond, what is the latest from the investigation in Iran right now?
Well, Anthony, we know that there are at least 2 Canadian investigators on the ground in Iran observing this investigation, but they want to do more than observe. The same goes for the Ukrainian investigators who are on the ground there. They want to see and they want to part and openly see the data that's in those black boxes, the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder. Those are the key to finding out more about exactly how this incident happened. Of course, investigation teams are back home in the affected countries, in Ukraine and the Netherlands, speaking to the families and meeting with the families of the victims, taking DNA samples. That's part of the very difficult and long process of identifying the victims of this tragedy. Of course, in Iran, there has been a big reaction among the public there. We've seen social media footage, people very angry. The government there is admitting that its people are angry about its shooting down its own citizens over its own country. Arrests have been made, but ultimately, who exactly will be held accountable and how will they be held accountable? That is what's being talked about here today, Anthony.
Yeah, hopefully some answers will be forthcoming. The nightmare continues in the meantime for these families. Redmond, thank you as always. Redmond Shannon joining us from London.